Hello crafters, this is Infinity Fortress. I'm your host, Taco Mage. So we had a bit of a whoops during the recording of my second half of my first session. I'd originally planned to chop my first session into several episodes just so that it was kept, each episode was kept nice and short. I personally like to have shorter videos whenever I'm watching them, mostly because I have kids and they tend to pull me away from the computer at any given moment. So being able to watch them in small, like 15-minute chunks works really well for the way I want to view things. So I figured I would do the same thing. However, not realizing it, I was using NVIDIA's GeForce ShadowPlay to do all my recording. Now, ShadowPlay is nice in that it has really good video quality because it uses basically a native stream through your graphics card or something of the sort. So you get really, really good visual quality. I didn't realize just how bad the audio quality was in ShadowPlay. But apparently that's the biggest complaint everybody has about, is that the audio quality is basically rubbish. And there are also some bugs, and I was nipped by one of those bugs. The bug that nipped me was the fact that occasionally sound will just cut out, and it won't cut back in until you reset ShadowPlay. And that happened to me shortly after the cutoff of my first video, so I actually lost about 3 hours of footage. Well, I didn't lose the footage. I have 3 hours of footage without any audio whatsoever. So instead of going back and recording it all, I'm going to put together a little kind of play-by-play of what happened between that episode and what's going to be in my next episode. In my next episode, I'm going to use a different recording software, just because ShadowPlay just isn't there yet. It is a beta product, and it really shows, especially in the audio. So I'm going to use something with better audio recording and see if I can get it up to the same level of video that I was getting in ShadowPlay. Actually, I was bit by two bugs. The other bug I was bit by happened during my second set of recording, which also was rendered pretty much useless. In that case, I had updated to the most recent super beta release, because they had fixed their audio cutoff problem, or so they said. In fact, it seemed to be true. I have 3 hours of video that have absolutely mediocre audio quality, but it's, all the audio is there. The video cuts out at about 45 minutes, though, so I lost another 3 hours worth of I lost 3 hours worth of play footage there. So I'm going to have to pick up the pieces of that in my next video. But I've still got enough clips, I think, to make a good, solid episode here, so I'm just going to start and kind of tell you what I did. Let's cue up a little bit of mood music while I go over this. There we go, that'll work. So, the first thing I did, since I was going mining, was I mined. I got a lot of good stuff that's going to come in handy later. Specifically, I got a bunch of redstone, got some gold, got a bunch of iron, ferrous, aluminum, all the good stuff. I also got a small little pile of diamond, which is going to come in real handy later on. In fact, it becomes very handy later on in this set. So after I was done mining, I decided to go off on more adventure. I started heading towards my island. Really, within a couple of minutes, I found a structure on the map. I thought it was a natural gen structure, so I went to check it out. And what I actually found was my buddy Monikin's base. I tried to say hi to him, but I was literally typing when he teleported away to go do something. So I looked around his house. I came very, very close to robbing him blind. I thought about it. I wasn't sure if he'd claimed the area, but I don't think he had. But in the end, my conscience got the better of me, especially since I didn't know if I was going to have anything he wanted. And it turned out much later in this little run that I did have something he wanted, and I was able to get a trade going with him. So I guess honesty in this case did work out for me, because I did stay on his good graces, and I made a very good trade for myself. Another thing that I ran into on my little journey was zombie spawners. I actually ran into quite a few of these. I think all told I got my hands on 4. I could have had a lot more, but the 4 that I got will be enough. And these are zombie spawners. Now, with Ender.io, you can turn a broken zombie spawner, which is something now that vanilla spawners drop as a broken spawner. It happens only when you have Ender.io loaded. Well, then maybe another mod does it, but as far as I know, it only happens with Ender.io. And then you can basically use a captured mob to ensoul this spawner in order to change what it spawns, and then you can use that in order to build an Ender.io powered spawner. That's really good because it's a mostly technological solution to a problem, which is getting mobs to spawn. I'm going to have to be making probably more than a couple of spawners in order to get everything that I need to get in order to do this challenge. Specifically, things like Endermen and Blazes are going to be something that I need to spawn. Blazes in particular, because this is a boundaried world, it makes the nether very small, and blaze spawners tend to get picked over rather quickly. If I have an issue getting a blaze spawner, that I may have to break the rules a little bit, and go to somebody else's base to get one, or maybe I'll trade for one. I think that would still be allowable, especially if they came to me. But anyway, so those spawners are going to come in handy a lot later. I also found a really cool castle. Now this is an ancient warfare castle. They spawn randomly, and they've got 3 chests in them, and these chests just have random loot. The rest of the castle itself is pretty empty. I imagine this is something in the mod that isn't quite finished yet. So, but anyway, it's a good. You can also get wheat and stuff here, but I didn't, because wheat seeds are really easy to get even when I'm trapped up on my island. Because I will be going to the mining dimension at some point, if only to put up a quarry of some kind. But while I'm there, I might as well get seeds, because there's going to be grass everywhere. It's also a good source of early sand and a great source of dirt, so the mining world is going to be where I get some of those more mundane stuff, as well as the place I'm going to put down my quarries. So these castles are pretty cool. They make really good starter bases if you don't have anywhere else to stay. If you don't want to make your own base, these make great little either temporary, or you can even, I think somebody in our server before it reset actually took one of these and basically kitted it up and put all their stuff in it and just made a really cool base out of it. I tend to remember that, but I can't remember who did it. Other thing that happened of note was I got a visit from one of the ops of the server, Joe Schmo, the very person who gave me this challenge. So he basically just wanted to talk, and unfortunately I lost all that, because we actually had a decent conversation that was a lot more interesting than the rest of everything else I've been doing so far. But anyway, while he was visiting, we did kill a whole bunch of mobs, and we actually found Testificate Village. Your basic Testificate Village, I don't remember anything particular about it, except that we found the king there. Yes, you see it now. Elvis is alive and well and living in a Testificate Village. So, if you need to see the king, you know where to look. Oddly enough, all he was really selling was jukeboxes for like 7 emeralds, so he needs to work on his economy a little bit better there. While I was also out exploring with Joe, we found the very first meteor of my trip. I actually found a lot of meteors across the 6 hours of footage that was either sound corrupted or lost. In fact, I found a triple meteor spawn really close to where my island is, so that was really cool. But in this first meteor, I built a diamond pickaxe, started digging into it, and found 2 inscriber presses. So that's going to come in handy later when I do Applied Energistics too. Applied Energistics is pretty much required for, well, it's absolutely required for this challenge, but it's required for any kind of tech run through, because it really is a good way to automate, and not to mention it's a great repository for all the junk that you collect. It's also good for things like quarry collection, where you're going to be collecting more stuff than is going to fit in your chest, and it also acts as a good staging area for smelting. So that was cool. Just after I parted ways with Joe Schmo, I found yet another castle. Once again, pretty uninteresting as far as loot in this one. The first one actually gave me a whole bunch of string, which turned out, my backpack recipe that I thought I knew, I didn't know. Yeah, so I had thought that I needed 5 string and 4 leather. Turns out that the recipe that I was thinking of was a backpack with 5 wool and 4 leather. So after I realized that, I luckily ran across an enormous field of sheep. There are a couple of mobs there too, but it was a pretty big field of sheep. So I actually went out and built myself a pair of shears, and then harvested wool for, God, it was a good 10 minutes. I ended up with like a stack and a half of wool. After I got that wool, I then tried to build my backpack, which turned out to be an advanced or ancient warfare 2 backpack, which you need to research through the Ancient Warfare 2 research line. So I couldn't build it. The backpack that I really needed was 8 leather in a square. Something that I could have built right at the beginning of my journey had I just killed a couple of more cows. So literally I did like 90% of the journey to my island with the wrong backpack recipes in mind. That was kind of embarrassing. But luckily, shortly after, I found my second meteor, so that assuaged me of that dumbness a little bit. And in that meteor, I found the rest of the inscriber plates I needed. In fact, for the very first time, I found 3 inscriber plates in one meteor. That never happened to me before. I'd only ever found 2 before, and I thought that was as much as spawned. But apparently, you can get 3. So literally, in 2 meteors, I got all 4 plates, which that never happens. You usually have to find 4 or 5 meteors before you get all your plates. So that was kind of extraordinary. It was shortly after that Monacan was asking around about inscriber plates. I can't remember if it was him necessarily asking around or if it was me bragging about finding all 4 plates on the first day. But he wanted to borrow my plates. He actually was just going to give me the materials for it. But I didn't have any of the stuff together, and I still had to get to my island and start setting stuff up. So I let him borrow them for a day. And in return, he offered me a favor to cash in load. He actually offered me a bunch of stuff that I did need, like a pick and stuff. So I just kind of held him to a favor. And I cashed in on that favor just before I started recording this voiceover. I traded him 32 wool for 18 diamond. I think I got extra diamond because I'd let him borrow my plates. So that turned out really well for me. Of course, it was after I had shot a sequence where I did some mining that will be showing up in my 3rd or 4th video. So it was like, well, I just mined all this diamond and got some for free. But as I said, never turned down a big old chunk of diamond like that. After Monacan, I found more leather. In this case, I found donkeys and horses. I always feel bad about killing horses, not so much about donkeys, but when you need leather, you need leather, and in this case, they got me the leather that I needed in order to build my backpack. So that was great. Finally had my backpack. In fact, I ended up with a glut of leather, and I ended up making 4 backpacks, which I completely filled all 4 of them. I think there's a way to make them bigger, but I didn't really look into that too much. I just needed the 4 backpacks in order to get everything that I owned portable. Which, again, I need to take everything with me to the island. And about the island. Well, when I got to the island, I discovered kind of what the deal was with that. It was a slime island. Way up there. Which actually is going to work out in my favor, I think. It's going to be better than having an in-the-water island in that I've basically got free range in the airspace around that island, so I can build pretty much in full 3 dimensions. If I was in a water island, I'd have to worry about draining water or somehow getting rid of water using gravel or whatever. But in this case, I don't have to worry about that. I'm just going to build out from the island. It's going to actually, I think, work out in my favor. I'm getting excited about having the slime island. But I realized before going up there that I needed quite a few things, since I'm going to be completely cut off from not only the overworld, but from even the basic things that you would get on an island. So I started collecting resources. In fact, I spent a good 4 hours mining and just gathering resources. Things like more osmium, because I'm going to need lots of osmium, especially right at the beginning. Like sand, dirt, some cobblestone, all the basics. And then after all that mining, I realized that I needed a rubber sapling of some kind, because at some point I want to do MFR. MFR is Mine Factory Reloaded, for those who don't know, which most of you should. But anyway, for MFR, so I needed a rubber sapling. The problem that I later discovered is that our map, because of real-world generation, is pretty much 90% desert, and the rest of the biomes that I was able to find don't have rubber saplings in them. But I did come up with a solution to the rubber sapling problem, which I will get into in my next video when I cover that. But so I went questing for rubber saplings, and there were really only 2 interesting things that happened on the entire big journey that I went through. It was literally, that was the second recording where I recorded 3 hours of this epic journey from one side of the server at negative 6,000 blocks to the other side of the server at positive 6,000 blocks. It was a big journey. Actually, it wasn't from one side to the other. It was kind of diagonal across, close to the middle, from the western boundary to the northern boundary. But it was about a 9 to 10,000 block journey, all told. Found some neat stuff on that journey, but the one big one was the tinkers that I found in a testificate village. I found a nice 3x3 tinker smeltery in a testificate village, and I stole it. I stole the entire thing, because it had everything but the controller, the tank, the drains, and the little spout things that I can't think of that go underneath the drains. So literally everything that I need except those couple of pieces for the tinkers, which was a huge find for me, because doing tech only on this map is going to be very hard so far as clay is concerned. Clay is going to be a big problem. Clay only spawns naturally in these little emerald pocket things that I've found here and there. So there is just not a lot of natural spawning clay. So I'm going to have to make clay some other way. There are a couple of ways I can go about that, which I'll cover in more detail when I decide which one I'm going to do. But because I had this tinkers here, it saves me the need of making a lot of grout. All told, I got nearly a full stack of scorched brick, and I also got 2 pattern tables and 2 of the little cauldron things for making the blocks. So that was huge. It saves me a lot of work, and it saves me from having to figure out where I'm going to get clay from. So that was pretty big. Now, I did say that there were 2 things that were really cool that I found. I'm actually only going to mention that one in this video. I'm going to start the next video with one of those other really cool with the other really cool thing. There's actually 2 other really cool things. I'll start with the less cool and then move on to the cooler one in the next video, so look forward to that. And then the last thing that I was able to record and actually get video footage for was me hiding from a blood moon. On the server we have blood moons. I can't remember what mod they're from, probably random things, but I don't remember. So I hid from it. I didn't have much armor to speak of. I didn't really have a good weapon. And blood moons are just crazy, even if you're kitted up to the nines, because the mobs just keep spawning. I mean, if you got something that makes you essentially invulnerable, like quantum armor or something, that's not a big deal. But even when you're wearing something like Manulian armor, it's still pretty dangerous out there. You got stuff spawning left and right. You got creepers flying everywhere. It is nasty out there. So I hid. I unabashedly hid. I was in a testificate village at the time, and I hid in a building while listening to testificates get eaten by zombies. And that was really the last thing that I got actual footage on that happened. So, and the rest of my journey was me finding places where items spawned and robbing them blind. And I found a lot. Ingots. I found enough ingots to make a massive pile of bronze, which is going to come in pretty big handy early on, I think, because bronze can be used for making good weapons, good tools, and good armor. Other things that I found, which will come in handy definitely later, is I found a lot of RF tool dimlets. Now, dimlets are used to create alternate dimensions. Dimlets are basically the new technological version of Mistcraft. They're like the pages that you used to have in Mistcraft. So you take these dimlets, you assemble them on this dimlet research, you research them on a dimlet research station, and then you assemble them on this dimensional builder of some kind. And then you create this dimension, and then you can warp to it using a teleporter. That's definitely something that I'm going to be doing. When I said one of the possible solutions to my clay, that's one of them, is to create a dimension that has a lot of clay in it. I think I can do that. I have never actually needed to do that before, because clay is normally pretty common. You just find any stream and it's right there. But in this case, clay is going to be actually kind of rare. The other way that I can think of doing it is if you take plant matter, throw it in a combine or something, a compressor. I think you put them in a compressor and it makes a plant ball. You drop that in a macerator and it creates dirt. I think that's how it works. Then you take that dirt and move it over to a mechanism and put it in I think it's a chemical infuser with water vapor, and it turns that dirt into clay. Those are the 2 ways that I thought of so far. There's some other more complicated ways. There's also things like ex nihilo, but I'm kind of staying away from that because it's not really high tech. It's basically skyblock stuff, and I want to do skyblock without the skyblock, which is why I'm allowing myself to travel dimensions here. But that was pretty much it in my journey. Thank you for listening and watching. Next time we're going to get a little bit more mining done. I realized there were a couple of things that I forgot on my original trip. The 4-hour one between videos here. There was some stuff like obsidian that I needed to get. So thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.